Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So when I first came back from maternity leave, my producer Mia actually had this idea of doing a sleep deprived edition of Drunk Advice. So it would be like sleep deprived advice. And I was like, oh, I don't know like how we would logistically do that. Like, would you just barge into my house like at 5 a.m. and just shove the camera in front of me and give you some questions? And I'd be like, what? But we actually had planned to do this sex and relationships Q&A kind of advice video. And it just so happened that last night was a really bad night with my baby Rowan waking up every hour and a half to feed. So we are actually getting the sleep deprived advice because I'm shattered. Let me tell you that. But I'm going to do my damn best to answer your questions. We can do this. We can do this. This video is also sponsored by Cheeks. More about them later. I asked for your questions on the YouTube community tab. Oh my goodness. And I've split them up into different categories. First one being sexual desire. Here we go. How to allow for and help good faith discussion about difference in sex drive. I have a lower sex drive than my partner, and it often seems that I am the one who has to change to fit his drive. I don't mind my drive normally, but tend to pressure myself because of his drive, which just makes my drive lower. So how can we discuss this topic without it becoming too emotional and too much of a blame game? I feel like this is a very common issue in some relationships. The sleep deprivedness in me just wants to say, read Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski, read Mind the Gap by Dr. Karen Gurney, like done. There's your advice. Just read those books. Together, you're all right. But essentially, what you would learn if you read those books is that you are both completely normal. And yes, it is the dominant narrative of sex drive that the higher sex drive is normal, and so that you have to meet that and that there's something that is wrong with you, but that absolutely isn't. And what you want to do is approach those conversations with the understanding, like before you even try and attempt to talk about it together, you need to both be on the same page that one of you isn't the problem, that it isn't the case that one of you has a problematic sex drive and the other has a normal sex drive. You're both normal. You need to be coming from any conversation you have with that at the foundation. And then you also need to be coming to every conversation you have about it that because you are both normal, no one is to blame for the discrepancy. It is not one person's fault. And set a boundary for the conversation that as soon as it starts becoming a blame game, you just go, this is not the conversation that I wanted to have. This is not productive, and end the conversation, step away from it and say like, we will readdress this when we can do it in a way that doesn't end in a blame game. Like if you set those boundaries, set those parameters and expectations for the conversation, then hopefully the conversation will be more productive. And read those books. What counts as sex? I've been identifying as asexual for 5 years because I'm not interested in PIV, penis and vagina sex. Where are the barriers for this? Does wearing underwear while being intimate make it not sex, for example? Thank you. Okay, we made a whole video about what is sex, and essentially what it boils down to, whatever you want it to be. There's loads of different kinds of sex, and what counts as sex for one person might not for somebody else, and ultimately it's up to you to make your own definition. What I will say though is that being asexual and not being interested in PIV sex, whilst they can be related, they're not correlated. Is that the right thing? Essentially, there are a lot of people who are not asexual who aren't interested in PIV sex, and there are people who are asexual who might have PIV sex for all sorts of different reasons other than sexual attraction. I'm not saying that you're identifying wrong as asexual at all, like you do you, whatever it is, but you just said because you're not interested in PIV sex, and I just wanted to make that clarification in case that makes you want to explore your sexuality further. Who knows? There we go. How do you cope when your partner is kinkier than you are and sometimes you just feel like vanilla sex but they seem disappointed or bored by that? So you said, how do you cope? The way that you cope with things like that in a relationship is by sharing that coping with your partner. Like that isn't something that you should have to cope with alone. So talk to them. What easy, simple advice. Essentially, it's about figuring out what it is that you want out of sex, what your partner wants out of sex, where your crossovers lie. Maybe you could do like a want, will, won't list thing together. And it's a case of figuring out that the places where you don't cross over, how important are they for you? Like, would you be willing to have kinkier sex? Like, are some kinks on your will list, but maybe not your want, and so you can have some negotiations there about that? Or are they on your won't list, and actually is there a complete sexual incompatibility there? So I've been wondering if you have ever encountered somebody that cannot achieve orgasm when with another person. I've encountered many people like that, including myself for a long period of time. I have male genitalia, but I identify as a woman, and I cannot orgasm when I'm with a partner. It started to make me really uncomfortable to go out and look for new people to get with and try to explain to them how I just cannot orgasm, but still enjoy the act. Yes, this is very common. However, I do think that there's potentially extra pressure in your case, because it is usually expected, unfortunately, that a person with a vulva might not be able to come with a partner, but it is usually very accepted, very expected, and a lot of pressure on the person with a penis to orgasm, ejaculate, and that to be kind of like the end of sex. Like, it's very much written into the sexual script. It's part of our mainstream sexual narrative. So if you're somebody with a penis and you don't orgasm with somebody else, that can definitely cause people to potentially feel uncomfortable or potentially feel like they're not good enough because of the sexual scripts that we have been taught. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. First off, like, it's fine. It is very normal. It's definitely more our social and cultural ideas of what sex should be that is getting in the way here. My only advice really is to be upfront and manage expectations. This is what I did with sexual partners before I'd ever had an orgasm, so that's kind of what I've got to go off here, even though yours and I experiences are probably very different. But I would just say, with a potential sexual partner, like upfront before anything happened, I would be like, by the way, I don't orgasm. Please don't make it your personal mission. Please also don't feel offended. Like, I will still communicate with you about having a good time, you know, and all of that, but an orgasm is just not going to be on the sex menu. And yeah, maybe try and figure out a way to feel comfortable enough to like express that up front and manage everybody's expectations. I have a question about measuring sexual success. Like, what makes a good sexual encounter, other than both parties feeling safe and supported? When my ex and I would have sex, we would both enjoy it, but neither of us were able to reach orgasm. See, very normal. So the encounter would just kind of fizzle out without either of us reaching a definite ending point. Maybe this has more to do with both of our lack of experience as we were each other's first sexual partners, or maybe this is completely normal and I'm overthinking it. Any help/advice you could offer would be much appreciated. It is completely normal. I wouldn't worry about it, but obviously it is something that is on your mind. If orgasm isn't something that occurs in your sexual experiences, and as I was saying, orgasm being the end point in sex is so drilled into us with these sexual scripts that I can see why it's making you feel weird. What I would suggest is actually sitting down and having a think about what would be a satisfying end point to sex for you, whatever that looks like. Maybe it is a certain kind of passionate kiss or a cuddle. Maybe it's like screaming. Maybe it's doing a backflip. I don't know. But think about for yourself how you would want sex to end, and then also talk about that with your partner. And it fizzling out is absolutely fine. It could just be a case of being like, oh, I feel done. And that also like being the end of it as well. Or, kind of weird suggestion here, but maybe it would work for some people, setting a timer and being like, we are going to be having sex for 30 minutes. And then when that alarm goes off, whatever you're doing, you're like, done. Would that be interesting? Would that be fun? I don't know. Figure out what your end point is and how that would be satisfying for you. So as I mentioned, this video is sponsored by Cheeks, who I have worked with before and I absolutely love. These themes of like discrepancy in sexual desire and struggling to communicate about sex with your partner, and also like struggling against all of these dominant sexual scripts, a solution for me is porn. Hear me out. Ethical porn. So one thing that can help in relationships where there is a mismatched sexual desire is solo sex. And masturbation is often vilified in relationships, but it's absolutely fine to masturbate and watch porn when you are in a relationship, if that is something that you want to do. Having an opportunity to connect with your own individual sexuality can be a really healthy thing, and it can potentially also help with that difference in sex drives. Also, if you're not sure how to communicate what it is that you want out of sex, then maybe watch some porn together and just be like, that thing, I'm kind of into that, or like how that person did that, or like how this is all making me feel. Like porn can give you some really great reference points to be able to kind of be like that without having to actually find the words to describe, like, can you touch me in this specific way here and there, and this kind of stroking. That can sometimes be really difficult, but a reference point can be great. Also, ethical porn can be a really great inspiration and example of how varied and diverse sex can be. So if you're looking for examples of something that shifts away from dominant sexual scripts about how sex should start and end, then something like Cheeks and ethical porn is a really great place to like find those examples. So Cheeks is my fave subscription-based sexual wellness platform. Members get access to authentic adult films, some erotic audio stories, expert-led workshops on sexual wellness, sex and relationships, and they have a taboo-breaking magazine. There's just loads, something for everyone. You can find everything in their watch, listen, learn, and workshop categories, and I was having a look at what workshops they've got in store in 2023, and there's one all about the menstrual cycle, and also one all about your body and gaining insights from your body about gender and sexuality and relationships. So definitely check it out. Also, I saw recently in their magazine, they did an interview with jet-setting Jasmine, who is an incredible porn performer. It was all about being a person of color in the porn industry. And actually, I first learned about jet-setting Jasmine because I attended a talk that she was doing all about parenting, like sex-positive parenting, and also being a porn performer, and how she has conversations with her children about sex and about how like being a porn performer doesn't make her a terrible parent. Amazing, amazing woman. And of course, I'm also a big fan of their films. They are excellent. So you can get a 7-day free trial when you use my code Hannah12. Yes, Hannah12, because it is currently December, the 12th month of the year. Happy Christmas, everybody. You're welcome. So you can get your 7-day free trial with the code Hannah12 when you select annual membership, and you can switch to monthly or cancel anytime during your trial. The normal monthly subscription is £14.90 per month, and if you go annual, it is the equivalent of £9.90 per month. Check out the link in the description for more information, or head to getcheeks.com and use my code Hannah12 to start your free trial. Enjoy, and thank you so much, Cheeks, for sponsoring this video. So next up are the relationships questions. How do I know if the person I'm with is the right person to spend my life with? My partner has many wonderful things going for him, but the relationship also has many serious problems. I am literally torn down the center between whether I want to be with him or break up. Ooh, okay. I can't tell you what to do. Only you can actually decide that for yourself. I am but a mere stranger on the internet, and I have limited information to go off. But here's what I will say. These serious problems that you mention, have they been addressed? Have you attempted to try to address them? Are they being addressed in a way that is satisfactory to you? Like, no relationship is perfect. There's always going to be little things that kind of annoy you, irritate you, you know, get on your nerves. But that to me is kind of like the max it should be. It should be mild irritation at most, rather than like, we have some serious issues here. Also, there's this famous relationship therapist and researcher who is known to be able to predict whether married couples divorce. His name is Dr. John Gottman. You may have heard of him, and has come up with this magic relationship ratio. So this is in terms of like all of the interactions and experiences that you may have with your partner across a day, week, month, or whatever. And it can be from very big interactions that you have to just like very small day-to-day stuff. And the magic ratio is 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction. And that is apparently the magic secret sauce ratio for a relationship that will last. Is last what we would measure success of a relationship? Blah, blah, blah. That's a whole other conversation. But maybe take a look at your ratio of positive to negative interactions that you have and go from there. Enjoy. I wish you the best of luck. How do you deal with doubt in a relationship? These types of thoughts scare me and I get anxious when I have them. Is it normal to doubt? See, I don't know, because I think doubt in a relationship is something that feels so shameful that no one ever talks about it. Like, I've definitely felt doubts in the past, like at the beginning of mine and Dan's relationship, when you're like, what's going on here? But now I honestly don't feel any doubt at all. I've not spoken to anyone really about this topic, so I couldn't tell you, but maybe people in the comments could say if feeling doubts in a relationship is something that they've experienced and kind of like what happened, if they listened to those doubts or if they were just like, intrusive thoughts kinds of doubts. You've said that these thoughts scare you and make you anxious, and maybe one way to try and alleviate that is to tell someone, and maybe even telling your partner that you're having doubts. Kind of similar, which means that this doubting thing is maybe more normal than we would think. It's all something that happens inside us a little bit. I've been struggling with low mood and I'm struggling with doubts about my relationship and feelings for my partner. And this has coincided with weather changing and a change in my mental health. Is it normal for relationships to change after being together for a few years? Yes. I feel it's to do with pressure to feel a certain way all the time, to the point where I obsess over negative thoughts more and more. I don't want to break up with my partner and I'm pretty sure I want to be with him. He's amazing. I want him to be the person I spend the rest of my life with. Okay, so there's your conviction. Also, yes, relationships change over time. Also, mental health things, low mood, the weather changing, the seasons changing, all of these things can just like make you feel different about yourself, make you feel different about your relationship and about your partner. Everything is a phase. None of that is necessarily permanent. I think this pressure that we have to like feel a certain way, and I'm kind of making an assumption here that that certain way is like over the moon and ecstatic and like really romantically in love in this really intense way all of the time. But that is just not possible. And actually, from my experience and just talking to lots of other people who are in long-term relationships, the main experience tends to be that after a few years, you're just like, it's just fine. It's just good. It's actually quite boring, and that's nice. So try and let go of that pressure for it to feel this certain way all of the time. I think Hollywood has corrupted our minds in that way, that we must have like these really intense relationships all the time, when actually life's quite mundane, and long-term domestic partnerships are also quite mundane. Also, if you are experiencing low mood and poor mental health, do try and obviously talk to someone about that and talk to your partner about that, because they're your partner and they love you and they're going to want to help support you through that. Finding the balance in communication. Should you open up about everything with your partner, or are there things and situations when it is okay/better to keep things to yourself? Ooh, what a spicy question. So I can't remember where I heard this the first time, but essentially I was introduced to this idea of the difference between privacy and secrecy, and it is absolutely fine and in fact really healthy to have privacy within a relationship, because you are still individuals even if you are in a partnership, and having things that are just your own is really great, can be really fulfilling to you as an individual, can be really healthy. You want to have some things that are still yours, and you don't want everything in your life to be completely entwined with another person. Secrecy, on the other hand, is like the act of withholding information and actively keeping something from your partner. So it's really up to you to figure out which it is. Like, when you're keeping something to yourself, is that because, hey, that's just your thing and your partner doesn't need to know about it and that's absolutely fine? Or is there some guilt or shame attached to it? Are you hiding something from your partner because you're afraid of how they would react to it? That is a telltale sign that maybe it is something that your partner should know about. And ultimately, like, have that conversation with your partner about like, hey, what things do you want to know about? What things do you not care to know about? Or like, these things I'm just gonna like get on with in my life and I don't feel the need to tell you about. And they'll be like, cool, fine. That difference between privacy and secrecy, I think, is the key to figuring out sharing everything or not with your partner. What are your thoughts on polyamory? I'm currently in a polyamorous relationship and was curious how you feel about them. How do I feel about them? I'm professionally very curious about them, but personally, it's just not my relationship style. I have learned a lot from polyamory though, things that have definitely made my relationship better. Things like accepting that crushes on other people are going to be a thing, and actually being able to like talk about them with my partner and kind of be like, ooh, got a crush on this person, and not feeling threatened by that. So I am very appreciative of polyamory, and like, you go at it if that is your preference and your relationship style. I am but a little monogamous bean. So I've been wondering, what would be your advice on how to navigate a new relationship knowing that I am ace and my partner's not? I mean, at some point we'll have to have that conversation, and I don't know how it will unfold. Yes, at some point you will have to have that conversation, sooner rather than later though. Like, don't hold it off because you're scared or worried about what the outcome will be. Like, whenever you are ready, get it out there. Have that conversation. We actually have a podcast episode coming out in January with this guy called Cody, who's known as Ace Dad Advice Online, and he has a book coming out called I Am Ace. And we talk about that in the episode, about relationships between an asexual person and a non-asexual person and how you can make that work. And ultimately it is down to the individual people, and you know, there's no cookie cutter thing of like all ace and non-ace relationships will look like this. Like, that's something that you need to figure out. But yeah, we definitely recommend checking out his platform and the podcast when it comes out and his book when it comes out. Moving on to dating. Oh my God, it's been so long since I've dated. So I hope this sleep deprived advice is okay. What advice would you give to a younger girl who is attracted to older men but is unsure how to approach them? I'm 19 and attracted to 30-ish-year-olds. I want a serious relationship and worry they won't take me seriously because of my age. I have a lot of thoughts because I am a 30-ish-year-old woman, and like, my non-professional, if I take off my sex educator hat, if I think about like my friends in their 30s and if any of them were dating a 19-year-old, it would raise eyebrows. It would. Okay, anyway, however, there are definitely plenty of 30-ish-year-old men out there who would love to date a 19-year-old. And that is also a potential problem in itself. I would like to ask you the question, why? Like, why are you attracted to older men? You might not have the answer to that. Sometimes we have no idea why we're attracted to the people that we're attracted to. That is just who we're attracted to. Also, like, is it always 30-ish-year-old men? So like, by the time you're 30, will you also be attracted to 30-ish-year-old men? Or are you attracted to people who are like 10, 15 years older than you? And that will just like always continue. Anyway, that's just something I'm curious about. That's not really relevant to the advice. Age gap relationships are complicated. I think there is a conversation to be had, and it probably is being had in many places, about the pattern of like older men, younger women, power dynamics, and actually a lot of the time, the pattern at least, of it being problematic. That being said, there are plenty, and I've watched YouTube videos of all of these couples with their age gap relationships, like it's a whole niche on YouTube, where it's really healthy, where it's really lovely. And it just so happens that these two people have got a massive age gap. Like my grandparents, 24 years difference between them. Like almost all of you will have an example in your head of like, oh, but I know these people and they have a 15-year age gap and it's all fine. Absolutely, that is all completely valid, but there's definitely things to consider. I would say about like meeting and approaching older men who you're interested in dating, the important thing is to meet as equals. There will be lots of opportunities where you might meet in a situation where there's another power imbalance on top of the age gap. But what you want to do is like find places like, where can you socialize? Where can you hang out, where you're going to naturally meet and interact with lots of fun people who have the same interests as you, same values as you. Like, this is just advice that I would give for dating generally. Like, be in those places, physically or online, like where you're going to meet like-minded people so that you are meeting as equals. And then the age just becomes like a secondary thing. I feel complicated about things like that. Also, there's definitely something to be said about being attracted to somebody older because they are older and potentially like more financially stable and able to provide for you financially and all of that stuff. Like, there is absolutely an element of that being like an attractive thing for some people. So, you know, enjoy yourself. Please still just try and enjoy dating, you know? Any tips for first dates? I feel like I am ready to get to know people, but something about first dates stresses me. How am I supposed to get to know someone when the possibility/expectations of romance is in the room the entire time? Ooh, excellent question. So how do we remove the possibilities/expectations of romance so you can relax? Maybe it's a case of picking something to do that isn't like a stereotypical date thing. So maybe no drinks, no dinner, no coffee, like remove all of those things, and maybe it's a case of doing something where it's like an actual activity that also involves like moving your body and is quite active, if that's something that you can do, because then there's something that you're actively doing together. It can distract from the like, oh, we must get to know each other to see if we are romantically compatible. And the thing that you're doing becomes the focus point, and the getting to know each other and the potential romance is kind of like happening naturally behind the scenes. Does that make sense? I'm unexpectedly single at 32. I want kids in the next few years, and I'm just wondering if you have any tips to date smartly while still having fun and not scaring potential partners off by being the stereotypical 30-something woman looking for a baby daddy / mummy / non-binary parent. So I feel like this is a very common situation that a lot of people find themselves in, although I personally don't have any experience in it, so I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts and experiences and knowledge in the comments to help this person out. Whether or not you want to disclose up front, whether that is like on a first date or even in like your bio on a dating app about what it is that you're looking for, that is up to you. It could be a really good thing to do because it's almost like a litmus test, because in your mind you're probably like, okay, I want to have kids in the next few years, which means I need to meet someone who I want to have kids with like pretty soon, and so maybe you don't want to be wasting your time on people who are completely not interested in having that life. So the people who wouldn't be compatible with you and what you want out of life aren't swiping right. You're not having to spend time having a first date with them only to find out that they never want children. So it might mean that you go on less dates and things are a lot slower, but the quality of the people that you are meeting, it's like you're more likely to find the person who has those shared values and is at that same stage in life and has the same priorities. And then the other thing that I'll say is, have you looked into fertility stuff and maybe freezing your eggs? Because you never know what's going to happen, but that might be something that you might want to look into. Next up, sexual confidence. How to gain confidence after a long period of time, over 10 months, of not having sex with another person due to illness. The way you gain confidence after that is slowly. Like, it is not going to be a light bulb, a light switch moment where suddenly you're like, aha, now I'm sexually confident, now I'm over that whole fiasco that just happened with my health. There's also going to be lots of ups and downs. Like, it is a process, the same way that recovery is. Like, rebuilding or building for the first time sexual confidence is a journey, and there's going to be moments where you're like, I think I've got this, and then other moments that feel like a real setback, and that is totally normal and that is totally fine. Be kind to yourself and don't see it as a failure that you have low sexual confidence at the moment, because everything is a phase. Still a virgin at 28 years old, which really affects me mentally and emotionally and makes me think I'm broken. Lots of fears appear when I think about the first time. I won't know how to do it. He won't want to do it because at my age I should have had more experience. Any piece of advice? Obviously, it is very real that this is affecting you, but also virginity isn't real. It's a concept. But that's probably not very helpful because the concept of virginity is actually impacting you, which sucks because it impacts a lot of people in really awful ways, and yet it's not a tangible thing. Society is obsessed with virginity, and that can create this like huge amount of pressure that you're feeling that, you know, that you're of a certain age and it should have happened by now. But it's all completely artificial. Obviously, part of my advice is going to be try and ignore all of the messaging that is out there about virginity, but that is so hard because it is everywhere, it is pervasive. But maybe try and find more stories and encounter more people and listen to more things, watch more things that do deconstruct virginity. I would highly recommend Sophia Gaylor-Smith and Dr. Kate Lister, their books and their writing, their work. There is stuff out there that really like breaks down virginity to what it is and what it isn't. Also, potentially a helpful way to reframe things is that everybody's first time with a new person is a first time. Just because you have previous sexual experience, yes, that might help with confidence, but it doesn't mean that they're going to know what they're doing with that new person specifically. And then again, of course, be kind to yourself. It is really hard because of all of that messaging out there. But you are absolutely not broken. You're not a failure. There's nothing wrong with you. It just is what it is. You haven't had your sexual debut yet, but that doesn't say anything about your self-worth. I remember you said that you've always been body confident, but can you offer any thoughts, suggestions, strategies to those that aren't, particularly around unwanted weight gain or loss? Yes, I can offer you some specific things. It's going to be really easy for me to say them, but obviously they're harder to do. Number one, expose yourself to lots and lots of different kinds of bodies, and especially bodies that look like your body on social media. If you have gone through recent weight loss or weight gain, get all of the clothes that no longer fit you out of your wardrobe. Donate them, send them off somewhere, or put them in a box, out of sight, out of mind. Don't let them be a physical constant reminder to you that your body has changed. Lots of positive self-talk. Sounds cheesy, even if you don't believe yourself at first. Get those affirmations out there. Do it in front of the mirror. And then finally, get naked. This might be one of the hardest ones for a lot of people, especially if you are struggling with body image. But being naked with yourself in a non-sexual context, also seeing lots of other naked bodies, the different ways their bodies move and look, just being around your own naked body and seeing lots of other kinds of naked bodies can be really positive. And another plug to Cheeks, because a lot of their films have such a diverse range of different bodies in them. So ethical porn can be a really great place to actually see lots of naked bodies that are different shapes and sizes. Next category, speaking of bodies. Would you ever do a video about PMDD? I have very severe PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which basically results in suicidal thoughts every menstrual cycle. I don't know anyone else who has been diagnosed, so it would be great to get more information. So I do know at least one other person who has PMDD. I want to say, but don't quote me on this, maybe check the NHS website, but I think it's about 1 in 10 people who menstruate have PMDD, so it is a lot more common than we think it is. But I don't know if it is 1 in 10. But it is more common than we think. And that sucks. That is so hard when it's something that you're dealing with on a monthly basis. I guess the only respite thing is that you know that it will pass, but it just sucks that you have to experience it month on month. If you have been diagnosed, just keep pestering your doctor. Try different contraceptive pills that might help balance out the mood. I'm not a doctor, obviously. Keep pestering and try and figure that stuff out. Obviously, I don't know anything about you in terms of details, but lots of other things can impact the menstrual cycle. And my friend who does have PMDD also happens to have ADHD, and her ADHD medication actually really helped with her menstrual symptoms as well. I have no idea about you if you have ADHD or if you have other things, but there are loads of things that can impact the menstrual cycle. So it might also be a case of thinking about other aspects of your life and figuring out if there's anything else going on there, taking a more holistic approach. Hey, maybe the Cheeks workshop in January about the menstrual cycle will have some information in it about that. Who knows? Cheeks know, they know. I'm currently pregnant with my first baby. I have my first prenatal visit coming up soon. What questions do you recommend mamas ask during their prenatal visits? Is there anything I should specifically keep an eye out for in regards to baby or myself throughout pregnancy? So that final question is definitely something to ask your midwife when you speak to them. And of course, congratulations. One of the things that I remember coming up in my first prenatal appointment was about foods that I can eat during pregnancy. So if you are unaware of what things that you should be avoiding, definitely ask about that so you can be clued in on that stuff. One of the things that they will tell you to keep an eye on during pregnancy is baby movements. So definitely talk about that and what that all means. And then another thing to keep an eye on during your entire pregnancy is your own personal mental health. Look out for you. Your body is changing. Your mind is changing. Your whole life is about to change. And then also talk to your partner. If you have a partner, if you're having this baby with somebody else, talk to them about your expectations, about how you're thinking and feeling going into parenthood and what you expect it to be like, and also what you expect from each other in terms of your behavior, because oh boy, I've seen things of people who don't do that. Okay, and finally, I'm going to end on some personal questions / parenthood, because lots of people had lots of questions. So I think this means that I can be done with the sleep deprived advice now. And now I just need to talk about myself. Great. What would you say are the 3 biggest lessons you have learned in 2022? Great question. I can be this tired and I can still function to some degree. I've definitely really learned about asking for help and accepting help and how there is no shame in that. And I've also learned that the setup of the nuclear family is shockingly bad for raising children, and just how dire the state is of gender equality among parents, and then also like structural support for parents, especially for mums and birthing parents. Like the whole capitalist system is not friendly to families, which seems so counterintuitive because we also think about like capitalism loving like nuclear families, and so a lot of it being set up for that, but actually the practicalities of that in terms of capitalism doesn't match up with the financial, mental, emotional, and practical needs of parents and children, or carers and children, of children. Anyway, that's what I've learned. I wonder what you have to say about boobs being a sexual body part for most of a woman's life, and then suddenly they are food and dedicated to a baby. And I don't mean how others / media sexualize boobs, but they can be sexual / pleasurable to both partners in a relationship, and I imagine that changes when breastfeeding. It's a dramatic change, in my opinion. So yes, I think it definitely can be, and it is for a lot of people. My boobs were never really a sexual part of my body to begin with. I never personally got any sexual satisfaction from them, but partners have, and then I get sexual pleasure from seeing them having pleasure, so it kind of like works that way around. My boobs are definitely more sensitive now, but like not in a sexy way. I still enjoy them being touched in a sexy way, like mentally and like for my partner, but there is an element of like, I can only bear so much. It's like, kind of. Do you have any positive, surprising things that you did not expect to happen about motherhood? Yes. Well, I don't know how many expectations I had. I think I just had very low expectations or no expectations. I'm not sure. Because the only thing that I can really think of is that I was surprised to have and grateful to have a very chill, happy, and gorgeous baby. You don't know what kind of baby that you're going to have. So any kind of baby that you have, that's going to be a surprise. But I'm very grateful for the surprise that was a generally, other than the nighttime sleep, a very easy baby. What are you grateful about in your partner? How do you help each other parenting? And how do you cope with stress of parenting as a couple? So the thing that I'm really grateful for is that it feels like proper teamwork. Like Dan is there in the trenches with me. I also just love how much he loves Rowan. He is such an active parent and wants to spend time with our baby. And then the way that we help and support each other is just a lot of communication, talking about our needs, and then with the stress, we just make sure that no matter what is happening, we still have a laugh together. We can still like have a quick cuddle, like those physical releases of like physical touch, like a hug or like having a laugh together. Those things are such good de-stressors. Even if the stressy thing itself, like a crying baby, is still happening, if we can laugh through it or if we can like give each other like a hug through that, it helps. If you knew that your next pregnancy would have all the same problems, feeling really ill, stoma stuff, etc., as this one, would that put you off having another baby? Oh, this is such a tricky question because ultimately I would like another child. And so that desire is actually like above all else. So no, it doesn't put me off, but I am dreading it. I am really, really not looking forward to pregnancy again, if I am able to get pregnant again, because obviously it took us a year last time. So holding out hope that I can get pregnant again and deliver another child into this world, but not looking forward to it. Like not looking forward to the physical and emotional experience of pregnancy. Ugh. Have you had any anxiety during pregnancy regarding stillbirth / miscarriage? If yes, how did you deal with that? How are you doing mentally during a postpartum period? Let's answer these backwards. So I'm actually doing really well mentally during postpartum period, other than like sleep deprivation and general stress, but ultimately doing great. And yes, I did have some anxiety around stillbirth and miscarriage. The way that I dealt with it whilst I was pregnant was every day I thought about how grateful I was to be pregnant that day. So it was all about, for me, living in the moment. I still have a lot of fear and anxiety about potential future, like, miscarriages or stillbirth. Like, it makes me so upset and scared to like think about. Obviously, like, they're horrible things for a person to have to go through, but ultimately I try and not focus on things that are completely out of my control and really just like live in the moment of like, what do I have control over? What can I do now? Is there anything that I can do about this? No? Okay, let's put it aside. Let's not worry about it. Weirdly enough, another thing that kind of helps me in a kind of sad way is that I know that other people have experienced these things, and whilst it has been horrendous for them, their life continues. And it doesn't mean that those experiences are forgotten, but it does mean that they are able to still find joy and still like live the life that they want. Yeah, and so I'm grateful for people who do feel comfortable to share their experiences of those things, because one, it like brings light to that, because they're more common than people think. I also personally find it reassuring that whilst it will probably be like one of the hardest things to go through if that were something to happen to me, the reassurance that ultimately these people were okay. You know, if I can even say that. How did you find contraception post-baby? I'm going back to pre-pregnancy method. Did your body react the same way as pre-baby? Pretty much, I've gone back on the pill, and I'm probably going to do a whole episode of the Hormone Diaries talking about like sex and relationships and contraception in the future, so look out for that. But yeah, I'm just back on the old pill. What body transformation did you feel had a greater effect, ostomy or pregnancy? So I think with my ostomy, I'm like so used to it now that day to day, it has a lesser effect, but the effect is still pretty drastic and it's permanent. Whereas with pregnancy, like in that short period of time, it had a huge effect on my body. It was monstrous, like it overtook everything. It was dramatic, but it was temporary. So obviously the effects of pregnancy do have lasting effects on your body post-pregnancy as well. I've not experienced a huge amount of that, but even in the ways that I have, it still feels more temporary than my stoma, which is literally permanent. Actually, no, it's not technically permanent yet, but I will probably make it permanent at some point. How does your relationship and sex life differ now from what you had expected it to before giving birth? Again, whole episode on the Hormone Diaries will be made about this, but spoiler alert, like really positive changes. Sex and relationships now? Good. I'm feeling really good about it. What is the sex and relationships topic you have found most interesting to learn about this year? Probably ADHD. Like that felt like one that was something that I didn't know a lot about beforehand. I'm so glad that we made that video and that we kind of did that exploration into that topic. I'm always learning new things about sex and relationships, but sometimes it always feels like it's just like adding to previous knowledge I had about little things here and there. But that felt like I had zero knowledge and now I have some knowledge, like learning about a whole new thing. So yeah, definitely that. I'd be curious to know what sex and relationships topics you've found most interesting to learn about either through my videos or the podcast this year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this Q&A. Definitely check out Cheeks, link in the description. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. If you would like more of me, Vlognica is still happening over on my More Hannah YouTube channel for the 8 days of Hanukkah. But for this channel, we're taking a little break over the holidays and we'll see you back in January. Bye!